Britain and Ireland have always had an extraordinary history of salons. Our salon culture, our salons are called circles firstly, have been much more eccentric and not class-based like other salons, like the salons, famous salons in France, where they were the aristocracy only. And the British and Irish salons from 1600s, from our first gay monarch, we've had this tradition of defiant women who cross-dressed, defied the mores of the patriarchy, refused to be submissive, refused to be uneducated, refused to follow the sexual submissive guidelines as laid down by men. And they would host these salons in their home, these aristocratic women, and they would invite people from all walks of life, the arts, but not just the arts, just people who were eccentric. Eccentric was an insult. It was a word that arrived out of the scientific revolution of Francis Bacon, the father of modern science and empiricism. And it refers to the degree of deviation of a planet's orbit. So a planet's circular orbit isn't a perfect circular orbit for one, but it varies, and that measurement is called eccentricity. And so eccentric meant deviant. So if you didn't like eccentrics, you called them deviants, and it could mean that you were queer, trans, gay, or a non-submissive woman. And the fabulous thing is that we must remember is that history isn't made by conformists, by people who follow the rules. History is made by people who are deviants, eccentric, as I prefer to refer to us, because they're the innovators, they're the ideas, the new art forms. They're the money makers. They're the people that are going to carry us forward, who make history, who keep history moving along in a positive way if they're allowed to, or not at all if they're rounded up and imprisoned by politicians or governments. And some of the fabulous things that have come out of the British and Irish salons have been champagne, the wine bottle, the champagne saucer, nothing to do with the French at all. We bought their wine. They called the sparkling champagne of the region Vin Anglaise, because they just refused to drink it, because any wine connoisseur knows that bubbles spoil the elegance of the wine. But the British and Irish have a long tradition of loving their wines vigorous, as we called them back then. So champagne came out of the salons, the Grand Tour came out of salons, clotted cream came out of salons, the computer came out of salons, and naked fencing in St. James's Park by women in their diaphanous nightgowns that came out of salons. And the last famous salon, circles, as I said, that's what we call them, was the Bloomsbury Circle. But we could have a salon here. We have enough people, we have enough eccentrics, but I think we should return to the salons. We need to start celebrating innovation and celebrating gatherings of people. Look at Lady Montagu. Elizabeth Montagu hosted her salons first in her house on Hill Street in Mayfair, but as they became more popular, she built a mansion on Portman Square, Montagu House, to accommodate her breakfast salons. So at about 1 to 2 in the afternoon, 200 to 300 people would turn up to her bedroom, peacock feather-lined bedroom, and they would sit all over the room drinking tea and quaffing champagne. And we had Gainsborough, we had Angelica Kaufman, we had Ignatius Sancho, the who started life as a slave, but was liberated when he was 8 and taught him to play the harpsichord. He was taken into the bosom of salon life from an 8-year-old boy. And abolition, another great thing to come out of the salons, in fact. The emancipation of women. The movement to emancipate women, in fact, came out of that salon in particular. And so over champagne and cups of tea, they would put the world to rights. And when I say they didn't discuss politics, things like abolition and emancipation are humanitarian issues, not political issues. And it's interesting because we think of salons as full of these deviant artists, these eccentric artists and fabulous people, but they also were attended, and I think this is key, by the head of the Bank of England, by the head of different trade companies, because the money makers needed to keep their fingers on the pulse and know which way the wind was blowing. So that's how they kept them. The change was introduced, because the salons, as long as you were an eccentric, they didn't judge you for what you did. As long as you didn't fit in, as long as you were cutting a line of your own, you were welcome at a salon. And I think that we should bring back the salon, the eccentric salon.
Bring back the salon.
Celebrate the deviance.